All right. So, what I want to get into next, actually, is what we've been discussing and talking about. Well, in chat a little bit, anyways, I should say. But let me go ahead and share my screen and show you what's going on here. Actually, I need to share the audio. 1 second. I gotta stop sharing and share again. Because the next couple videos after this, very, very interesting. So this is the Dead Sea Scrolls, the caves there at Qumran. So if you take a look at some of these pictures, just kind of familiarize yourself with, what it looks like here. Let me see if I can get it on. Oh, no. I wanted to do this. There we go. So if you can see that better on screen there. Excuse me. So it just looks like some things are not quite right here. And again, if we go look at zoomed out views of it, I just wanted to kind of show you all this. Like this cave right here goes all the way through. And I wanted to show it because these next few videos are going to get into a lot of this. And I suspect the Dead Sea Scroll caves here are melted buildings. I mean, look at all these, wings, I suppose you could say, of a building, different wings of it coming out. Even the site itself, very fascinating. I mean, a lot of these, it does look like a melted building. And I say that because if you know about Ron Wyatt and his finding of Sodom and Gomorrah, we could see very, very similar stuff. Like, I mean, look at this one here. Straight up windows, doors, things like that. Right here in Sodom and Gomorrah, what Ron Wyatt had found. And then again here, right there at Sodom and Gomorrah, looks very familiar to the Dead Sea Scroll caves. Of course, Sodom and Gomorrah was turned completely into ash. So it's a little bit different because this is just the ash remains of what was once stone and things there. So it got really hot here and just turned everything to ash. I mean, you could see the columns, things like that, the building. And again, another cave here, very similar looking to the Dead Sea Scroll caves. Just very, very interesting stuff. And again, this is Sodom and Gomorrah, which Ron Wyatt had found. I think it was back in the 70s, something like that. Yeah, all these pictures, really, if you type in any search engine, you could just type Ron Wyatt, Sodom and Gomorrah. You'll find all these same pictures. And again, how they closely resemble the Dead Sea Scroll caves. Another thing I wanted to point out was this. It's called the King of Wings in New Mexico. So if you look at this rock, it looks more like a tree stump. And then this axe, which was used to cut down whatever tree was here, was just left there. They try to claim this is some natural formation and things like that. No, nature doesn't form naturally into an axe shape. And you can see how giant this is. So something a Nephilim would use. And again, this is a real place there in New Mexico. This seems like a good picture to kind of blow up here for everybody. But yeah, you see the axe handle, the axe head laying on top of this, what looks like a tree stump. You can see the roots coming out here. Of course, it's been weathered away, things like that. But same thing, you can see all these different mountains here. And I wanted to get into this because this guy does a really excellent video. Let me share this in the chat, actually. And I'll try to do that. We're going to watch 2 or 3, probably 3. They're only about 15, 20 minutes long or so. But here's the link to this specific video there in chat. And on YouTube, I did make a playlist that includes all of these videos in them as well, which is actually what I'm going to be sharing from. But this video here and the ones that will follow it, very, very fascinating information. You're going to see. So let me go ahead and mute it, and I'll just play it.
All right, today we're talking about melted buildings, mountains being melted buildings. Not necessarily all of them, and I'll get to the what some of the other stuff is. Electromagnetically scarred, electric discharge, plasma scarred Earth. Talk about fulgurite, stuff like that. But look, it looks like deserts or even brick ash for the most part. Look at this, right? Look at this. It's just a melted castle, right, out in the desert. And then this one's in Russia. This is like the Church of St. John, I think it's called, in Russia. And it's like they didn't just decide to they didn't carve it, because you'll see blocks or bricks, right? And I don't think they just decided to build in some places and not build in other places. And it just makes no sense that it's in this state, other than it got heat damage. And yes, brick can melt. Brick, it takes, I think, like 1,100 to 1,300 degrees Celsius, depending on what the brick is made of, to where it will start to become viscous and swell up and merge with the other bricks. It'll start to lose that red color, and it'll end up looking just like stone. And, there's no other explanation for this church being in this state. They didn't just hey, let's build the bottom of it and then go to the top and build this little golden steeple on it, but we'll just build into and around all of this rock. That just doesn't make any sense. So they lie to us about everything, right? So there in the Himalayas, you can see these bricks or blocks, or, we could just call it geopolymer, right? Blocks, bricks, whatever you want to call it. It'll be different in different cases, but they're towers, right? With triangle tops. And these things in Turkey that they will tell you are fairy chimneys, and they're natural formations from millions of years of rain and wind. No. There was a lot of heat that damaged this realm at one point, and nobody carved this. Nobody started throwing random bricks up. There's pockets of survival, because this was melted by electric heat, electromagnetic heat, probably plasma. Could have even been piezoelectric forces from below, right? But this is a very good slide. There's a lot of people who've, researched this. I think this is KL. I can sketch you on Facebook, but you can see just normal bricks compared to when they start to get misshapen, swollen, charred, when they start to kind of become viscous and meld together. And even the mainstream, right, will admit that brick can melt, because there's this fort in Russia called Fort Zverev, and they claim they have no real idea how it melted, maybe some kind of experimental weapons malfunction, but normal heat does not, normal fire doesn't get hot enough to melt bricks. So maybe not the same event melted all the bricks all across this realm, but in my opinion, some of it was plasma. And whether it came from above via, the squatter man plasma apocalypse, or below via some kind of ley line, telluric current, old world circuit board potentially, or just natural piezoelectric forces, right? And it you can see all the mountain ranges have this Lichtenberg figure, this Lichtenberg pattern, and that's the exact pattern that electricity makes. So on the bottom left, you see electricity going through wood, and some of the other pics there are of mountain ranges. So, you know, I think it's clear nobody decides to build like this. Who's throwing random bricks up in here? And you can't tell me this is erosion, because erosion takes away, it doesn't add. They are spots where there are layers of amorphous, like weird shaped, blobbish rocks, quote unquote, on top of these bricks, and parts where you can clearly see it's charred. And even some of the bricks are charred, but some of them are red. You know, this is a heat event. This isn't, you know, same here. Nobody just threw up some blocky, bricky things next to the, you know, in between and around this weird natural formation. You can kind of still see brick lines in the quote unquote natural part, right? It's just all, it's just muffed, as some people say, right? With Tartarian Meltdown, shout out to that guy. Deborah Simpson is really awesome on Facebook too, the red brick chick. But this is in Arizona, Casa Grande, and it's the narrative on it's crazy. They want to say it's some like Spanish fort or something that they threw up, but I think most of it's already gone. But in parts of it, you know, they left us the clues. You know, it can't be erosion because that takes away, and there are clear evidence of brick underneath what they'll tell us. You know, so a lot of cases it's just brick with facade. And then the facade wears away and the brick melts due to this event. And here you see it's even underground, right? Even these like caves that they quote unquote caves or quote unquote mines, right? Caves are just pockets of preservation, right? A lot of times potentially covered by their own melted brick or desert or brick ash or whatever you want to call it, right? And you can see here where the bricks are still surviving on the ceiling a little bit. And it's just, the more you look at pictures of people exploring caves, you can see that they're not natural. And a lot of mines are not natural either, or they're not carved out by people looking, hoping to find, you know, metals and gold and stuff. They knew exactly where it was because like most hills and mountains, as you'll see, are just melted brick structures. And here's a cave, right, where eventually if this melts some more or melts a little differently, they'll tell you it's, you know, stalactites or stalagmites, whichever one come from the ceiling, right? But it's just melted brick dripping down. And these old world structures have plumbing. So when the thing melts, the plumbing breaks too. And a lot of this stuff gets cooled off mid-melt, and then the water continues to go. A lot of waterfalls come from these old ancient melted megastructures, and that's the minerals that come kind of add to the brick, and then it eventually looks natural because it gets run over so much by calcified or whatever water, mineralized water. Again, nobody builds like this. Nobody just, you know, these are survivor bricks because electrical charge does not distribute evenly. Some areas are more resistant. Think of the pattern, the Lichtenberg pattern, right? It takes the easiest natural course for it to flow, and some things are conductive and some things are not conductive of electricity. And there's differing levels of it, right? So, I mean, you find this no matter where you look, underground, right? Just evidence of just buried bricks. And some of it, you know, buried in mud. Maybe there was a flood, but could also be melted brick mixed with water that would basically be like mud too. So, but everywhere you look, this is in Toowoomba. And it's just, there's no way this stuff that they tell us is like natural formations just from millions of years of wind and water erosion. It doesn't make sense when you start to see so many structures made of bricks and the transitionary stages from, you know, obviously that's brick to, wow, yeah, that's brick, but it's messed up, to like, whoa, you can barely tell that was brick, right? And just to show how many phases there are and how many ways that just stuff could get ruined. And, you know, maybe all these aren't melted, right? Or you don't even have to say melted, right? It's heat damaged, but you see the charring, you see some swelling, you see some discoloration, and you know, it didn't hit everywhere at the same level, but you look at deserts and you start finding these pockets of brick construction under the surface of the desert. So that's what makes me think that a lot of these things are covered in their own melt or covered in their own ash, basically, if it's in the desert, if there wasn't enough water to turn it into mud or whatever. But look, I mean, if a lot of this stuff, if it was any further gone, it could totally pass for a natural formation, especially if that was the narrative given, right? But in a lot of these other foreign countries, they'll straight up say this is whatever so-and-so castle, right? And they'll tell you this, there used to be a castle, right? But it'll be stuff where you can barely tell. But here's a great example of a brick. It's definitely a brick. And one side, it got, charred, heat damaged. It didn't do a whole lot, and it didn't swell the brick up. It depends on the level of heat and how long the heat is applied and what the brick is made of, because brick can be made of a lot of different materials. And I don't want to limit it to just brick. There could be a lot of other geopolymers. But stuff like this, you couldn't, now that I have these eyes to see these transitionary states and that most of the things that I've ever thought were natural formations are melted brick structures, never in a million years could you convince me that this stuff is natural. You can see like cross-hatching and patterns and just brick lines, things that are in straight lines, and I just don't buy it, right? And just how do you explain stuff like this, right? Where it's clearly evidence of construction, but also just charred. There's unexplained heat damage all over. They'll even in the mainstream will admit that the Egyptian pyramids are unknown heat scarring, right? The same thing with some forts in Scotland, I believe. And look here. Oh, they just decided to go up there and build a little golden, probably etheric conductor on top of this random natural formation that's kind of, how awkward, how hard that would be. And you just see this mishmash of random ruined stuff everywhere, where it just makes no sense that they would have built like that. And wind and water erosion just can't possibly explain what we're looking at, So this is, I wanted to show the transition, how this can possibly transition. So this is something that's as big as a mountain, one of these Tibetan monasteries, right? Over probably in, Tibet, right? But as it starts to, get damaged, like that's one. This is a different one. Do you think they just built this one half-heartedly, or do you think it used to look like the first one and something really bad happened to ruin most of it, right? I mean, you still see the gold stuff over there. They didn't just build a partial one here. This is just what's left of what used to be that other one. And look, when it just continues and continues and continues to get ruined or heat damaged, or, some of this may be erosion, some of this may be caused by a flood or whatever, but I think most of it is heat damage. And you can see the different stages, and pretty soon it'll be a natural formation. And look what I saw in Phoenix, right? When I went on a hike with some of my buddies, when I went up there to see some music. I took a picture of that, like, man, it looks like that used to be level, and heat ruined the whole thing, and it caused it to slant with the left side kind of caving in and giving in first, right? And to me, I just don't think that's caused by a volcano or the tectonic plates crashing together or whatever, because the more and more and more I look at stuff, right? This is in Saudi Arabia, and they call this thing a university. And if you look at the top, you see that little dome thing that, the rest of it is in ruins, and you can barely tell that it's actually something, right? If there's a little bit more ruin, they could convince us it was a natural formation. But then this is at the top, right? And this is just massive. This is in like Jordan or Saudi Arabia or Iraq or somewhere in the Middle East. But it just blows my mind that they pulled this on us, right? That they convinced us that this was all, that so much of this was natural or carved, when if you really, really look closely, right, you can see that it is just heat damaged. And, I put one of a couple comparison pics in here to end it. They call these capital, these are capital style buildings with the copper roofs, right? And the top formation is in the Capitol Reef National Forest in the Southwest. and it looks like the same copper on top, right? And probably this was brick. The facade is gone. Heat damaged it, and it looks like this now, right? And same thing here. This is called like church rock or dome rock or something. I think it's in Utah or Colorado, but it looks exactly like a dome structure, or like this structure that was from the St. Louis World's Fair, which, shoot, that's a whole nother rabbit hole and a whole nother episode. But I think that there's just no question to say that these are melted structures. These are heat damaged structures. Not completely melted, but definitely heat damaged. So I posted this in a geology group and they kicked me out right away. But this is Sphinx Rock in Katoomba in Australia. And they will look at you with a straight face and tell you this is a natural formation. It's a mountain, just eroded by wind and water. But look, that's such a easy. That's a column. It's a column of some sort, and there's clear signs of intelligent construction, right? And then we see things like these temples in Indonesia or Burma, right, where this whole thing's now. If you look, those are brick. It's just gold facade, and you look at the one thing on the right, and you cannot tell me that is not melted, heat damaged, and it's just a portion of it survived, right? It's a little pocket of preservation. And what most likely happened is, the miners knew that all the mountains and hills, for the most part, were melted buildings, and they knew that the old world used a lot of metal in their buildings, and whatever caused this, whether it was from below, like I talked about, or from above with the Squatter Man plasma apocalypse, that melted the metals that they went on to claim as mine. Right? They were just mining the metals of the melted past, right? But anyway, hope you all enjoyed. Have a great day.
Jeremy, the sound stopped.
Okay, so you'll see this is just one example of how a tree breaks down, and most people, when they think of rings, they think of looking down at a stump like this. But like, whether you're looking at it 2D, 3D, there's so many different ways these trees break down and fall apart and break apart. And remember the massive size difference. Okay, so this was a cedar. You can just tell by the characteristics. And then you see here how some of the rings are recognizable, okay? And then they get busted up and you don't know what they look like, okay? You'll see this all throughout my videos. But you just got to remember how the tree breaks down. There's so many different ways. Like in the side of the mountain, you've seen a bunch of stuff like that. It's weathered and eroded. That's all you're seeing, but hundreds or thousands of feet up the whole mountain. And then you got knots and different twists and turns. You just got to keep all that in mind. Things like that. But that there could have been thousands of feet in diameter, or not like that, to where it's not consistent straight rings like this. Okay? You see some of the radius, like the waviness. You see like a knot right here, or where a branch come out. There's so many different examples of how these trees break down. Okay? Okay, my camera shut off, but I'm going to show you this, okay? When you see stuff like this, I'm going to show you here in a minute, okay? All this is just weathered, worn, smooth, okay? All this. I just want you to look at this before we go walking down the road here. All of this, every single bit of it, is just remains of rings and parts of the tree. And then it turns to like sandstone, okay? And then it turns to sand, dirt. All this right here, okay, all that is just a breakdown of that, like sandstone, okay? Sandstone is just a different breakdown of the tree that's so weathered, okay? I want you to look at that, okay? So we're going to walk down this way. Okay, here we go. Here we go. This camera is very sensitive on the microphone. So, anyway, so you see stuff like this, okay? And all these little pieces down here. I'm going to show you what this is. And all that, you see all the sap that was in this tree, okay? We're going to walk over to this piece real quick. One of these days, I'll take you right about right in here. There's another mine there that very few people know about. It's incredible. And we're going to go to another one here in a few. But you see here, okay? This is all just petrified wood. And you see the stuff attached to it is the same thing. These trees were so large, and the different grains and textures that are in them, okay? Everything up here. And they always break off flat, okay? Okay, I wanted to show you one more thing. So you see a lot of this has fallen away, okay? And then you have pieces that are falling down, and you see what it does. Okay, and this is looking over the top. Same exact thing, but on a massive, giant scale. This piece right here could be 100 foot long. Okay? And when you see these really large pieces, and I'll put a picture in right here, of a piece like this that's as big as an apartment building, you'll see how large the branch was for a piece that big to come off of it. So I take this piece off of here, and you see how tiny this is compared to what it came from. So if this was as large as an apartment building, you understand how large the tree or branch must have been that this came from, if this is as big as an apartment building. They were enormous, and you see it. I've been showing you it, okay? This should be life-changing for everybody. And it should show them the lies from this world system. Satan is the god of this world. And they do everything they can to discredit God and his creation, because it's a spiritual battle. It's about souls. Okay? So we're going to head on over there and see what we can find. Now watch over here. So we're going to walk all the way down to the bottom. And then I got to walk back up, but I won't make you do that with me. So I want you to look at this, okay? Look it in here. All of this. You'll understand what I mean here in a few. You see all this here, okay? Okay, we're going to keep on going. And you see here, that's just so smooth and weathered. So we're going to walk all the way down. I'm going to walk all the way to the very bottom, and then I'll have to walk back up. But there's so much down there I want to show you. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to go up and get my truck and park right here. So the dogs aren't so far away from me. But I want you to look at this right here. All this in here. Everything. Okay, what I'm going to show you here in a minute, you'll understand. See all that? So I'm going to go up here to the truck. Go down there a little further. But I want you to look at this, okay? Because down there, I'll show you what it is. Nobody would ever think that this was part of a giant tree, okay? All of this, every single bit of it, the whole mountain, all them mountains back there. You see the way this breaks down. Okay, let me pause it till we get down there. Actually, I'll show you this again. You'll see that all this is just remains of trees that were so large. I can't even begin to think how large these were. The more I get into this, because they were so massive. Okay, so let me go down there. Hold on. Okay, so I will show you that these pieces here, even though they look just like big boulders, that these are remains of trees, okay? Got my girls in there. Okay, you hold on, girls. I need to let them out, but see, when you see all this stuff, all these pieces, everything, okay? When we get down here, you're gonna see the most convincing evidence you'll ever see, okay? Just got to get down there. All these pieces here, all them little pieces there are just bits and pieces. When I get back up, we'll walk down there. But I want to walk down here because this will show you. Okay? And later on here in this video, you're going to see how I'm going to show you how the rings break down and how some of it's recognizable and some of it's not, okay? This is the perfect example down here. But when you see all this kind of stuff, okay, it's just bits and pieces of something much larger. All these pieces that broke off. And I'm going to show you down here. There's just no place to park. And some of these people up here, even though they're mountain folks or the tourists, they're so uppity. So you see here, okay, I'm going to show you how all this, okay, I want you to look at this close. All of this Okay? All of this, these are just bits and pieces. So these are rings, okay? You'll understand here in a few. So all these right here, these are rings going up. And they're busted up. So much is falling away. That's where you get all these pieces, okay? I want you to look at this. All these are is busted up rings, and you'll see it everywhere in the mountains. I don't care where you're at. Okay? I want you to look close at this. Look close how the rings bust up. They're not recognizable for most people, but you will understand here in a minute. Okay? All of this. Everything, as far up as you go. All them mountains back there. All that back there behind them trees. I'm just showing you what the rings do, how they get busted up. Okay? And when I get down here to the bottom, you'll understand. Yeah, right up in here. Right up in here somewhere. There's an incredible place up there. We made a rope ladder and we went down in there. And it is absolutely incredible. And how there's an opening to a mine up there, I have no idea. All these pieces you see here, okay? And we're going to walk back over there, but we'll do that on the way back up. Okay? But you're going to see something really cool down here. And you're going to understand a lot just with a picture, so to speak. See all this, okay? All this is just pieces and parts, okay? That may not look recognizable. All of this right here, okay? All these pieces and small pieces of rings, okay? All this right here, okay? It's just a different grain that's in the wood. Different knots, okay? You'll see this stuff on an entire mountainside like that over there. I want you to look at this, okay? You see how the rings are? They're weathered. Everything under this sand. All these pieces right here in this ravine. You'll understand here in a minute. Okay, all that back there. You see how the tree is. There's different colors, textures, grains. Okay, and this is the sap that was in the tree. Okay, this is what the gold miners look for, whether it's telluride or it's gold, silver. So, let me show you here, okay? So here's a set of rings that is recognizable, okay? See that? Get a better overview. Okay, all this is the same. This could be a massive branch that's hundreds of feet in diameter that's found. But this is not damaged, okay? This is recognizable, okay? And then you come over here on this side, and you see that they're all busted up and they're not in perfect line like this. And rings aren't always in perfect line like this. But you see when they get busted up, what they look like, okay? And I'll show you from a side view. All that is right here that's all busted up. And all these pieces you see here are all ones used to look like that, with the rings of the tree. Okay, is it making sense now? And they always split like that, okay? Vertically and horizontally. But I don't mean to repeat myself, but you see, this here is recognizable, and this here is not. Okay? The rings are busted. And you'll see this in different many examples. Things that aren't recognizable. But when you see things like this, you know what it is when you see all this. Just all this trash and broken up rock. Okay? There'll always be something that's recognizable. But these things were so massive. So much is broken and fallen away.
I drove back and forth through there many times. You have to go past there to get to Kadesh. You have to go past there to get to the Red Sea crossing site. And I did stop and show my workers, my two sons and whoever else was helping us, this ash, because the road went right through the middle of it down at the Zoar area. And, I showed them this soft stuff. I said, this is bound to be what's left of those cities, where the cities of the plains once enjoyed a beautiful and very prosperous existence. The place where Lot chose, rather than the mountains, to feed his flocks and herds and raise his family. And you'll notice here that we have several feet of nothing but white powdery ash. Ash that's only produced when material is burned at degree temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The stuff crumbles to powder in your hands, sticks to your clothes. It's just pure ash. But it was, I guess, 1988, Marion L. and I were out there, and she found this chunk of ash that had been broken open, and inside it there was a little cavity that looked just unbelievably like an eyeball. So we were kind of puzzled about that. But about a year later, we actually found sulfur balls, these spheres of sulfur, and where they had completely burned up, there was a cavity very similar, you know, to this one that Marion L. had found a year before. Okay, we're down at Sodom and Gomorrah still. Right in front of you see some unusual looking spots on this, shall we say, layer of ash. It's not stone, it's ash. Now we'll move in for a close-up of this. And you can see that they're kind of circular shaped places. Now what we have found, and we'll move in a little closer here, is that inside each of these is sulfur. That is in most of them. Now the ones that do not have sulfur in them, and this one we just took a bunch of sulfur out and put it in our specimen bag. But the ones that don't have sulfur have a very black center where they have, where it's been very hot. So now we'll move in on this one where there is some sulfur still present, and back off just enough so you can see what we're up to here, and we'll go collect that sample in a bag. Before I started using this knife, it was very, very sharp. Okay, here this is, and we have collected some more, and it smells and tastes like sulfur, but we will have it analyzed to see for sure that it is. What appears to have happened is that from somewhere, sulfur, burning sulfur, landed at irregular intervals, as you can see them in the spots on this material here, and ignited the entire city. And of course, something that burns with sulfur burns very, very hot, and the resulting ash is heavier than the original materials that are on the combustion process. Now here's one of these sulfur capsules that is embedded in this material, and if you look closely, you can see the large amount of sulfur right in the center of the darker ring. And that particular one has a large quantity of just pure sulfur. And there are millions and millions of those throughout these ash heaps here that are the remains of the cities of the plain. If you read the story of the angel's visit to Lot in Sodom, They were trying to get these, what they thought was 2 young men out. Well, Lot was trying his best to protect these people because they were his guests. Finally, the angels reached out and pulled Lot in because these people were beginning to get physical with him. And it says, and they blinded the men of Sodom so that they wearied themselves looking for the door. Well, when I first read about this and heard about the story, I just assumed that God had blinded them. But that's not what it says. The angels, of course, through the power of God that he had extended for their use, they did something to these men that made them incapable of finding Lot's door. They found their way home after they wearied themselves. And so if he can hide a door from people that determined to get into a fellow's house, then I believe that he simply did something to people that passed there to prevent them from seeing this until he was ready for it to be shown. Well, the point here is that while God destroyed probably several 100,000 people in that valley, at that occasion, he went to great effort to save alive or preserve the life of the man who was more or less loyal to God. Now, one would think that Lot would have had better judgment than to locate in a place where all of this was going on. But anyway, it appears that God almost could be said to have bent over backwards to get Lot and some of his family out of harm's way. Mm-hmm. And so this leads to the same idea today. We have the option to go to our Heavenly Father and ask for forgiveness of our sins, and that he change our sinful nature, that he restore us to God-likeness as we were created in the beginning, stated in Genesis 1:26, and ask of him this blessing in the name and blood of his Son. If we refuse to do that and insist on being a destructive, polluting force, then we have abundant evidence that God will destroy the wicked. Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of the plains. In Jude, we're told that they're an example of what will happen to the wicked, even the angels. And of course, in Ezekiel 28, God tells Satan that he will be reduced to ashes upon the earth. Malachi 4 tells us that the righteous shall tread upon the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of their feet. Several stories of pure ash. All that is left of the stones, the wood, the people, the animals, everything that was in Sodom and Gomorrah. You recall that when the fire of God burned the offering on Mount Carmel, when Elijah called the priests of Baal to account, it says that it burned the offering, the stones, and licked up the water out of the trough. So no one will ever find any archaeological remains of the cities of the plain other than these ashes. And friends, if we defy God's kind and merciful entreaty to come to him and be saved and be renewed and forgiven, we will end up in exactly this condition, because the Word of God tells us so, and God says that he is the Lord. He changes not, neither does he alter the thing that has gone out of his lips.
Hey everybody, today I want to go over what I think is possibly one of the most incredible things that we don't even know about, is that all of the mountains and hills and all the high lands, I think, could possibly be melted buildings. And then the grass just grows right on top of it. And it turns into rock, and over time it just deteriorates. But I'm going to prove it, and I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures here of mountains turning into buildings turning into mountains. And it's just incredible. I mean, if you look throughout the world, there's so many photographs and proofs of this. It's remarkable. It really is. And the fact that nobody knows about it is another, I think, crime. And I think that's a great thing that we're doing here is we're all looking and researching together. And it's really, really cool. And, it makes you wonder, what could we be walking on every day? I mean, is it just every 400 years they wipe us out and then they destroy all the buildings somehow with some sort of, I don't know. If you guys have any ideas, that'd be great. Comment below and let me know. But my thoughts on it are that it is, I think all the land here is possibly just all created based on buildings and structures, and then we just build right on top of it. And there's so many things and evidence of this. Underneath cities, there are so many buildings that they've found, and I don't know. I also feel like maybe space could be a thing where they're trying to make you look up so that you don't look down. We also don't have the resources to just go digging around. Like, we can't just dig in our, we don't have a shovel, like a huge shovel, to go digging. And but even if we did, maybe they just destroyed it so well. But there are so many things around the world, though, that are not destroyed. And that there's, melted, rock forming on the building. Just doesn't make sense. When you really look at it, it's obvious that it's something. It's some sort of weapon or something that they had that melted these buildings and turned them into mountains. It's incredible. And if you look in the desert, maybe I have a great theory about the desert. I would not be shocked if maybe the melting, whatever melted this stuff, just hit that area so much harder than it hit. Maybe, that might be where all the big structures were, where all the big cities were and everything. And this time around, it would just hit too hard last time that there's no grass there anymore. It just destroyed and wiped out that whole area. I don't know. It's really interesting to look at these pictures and think about, but I do think that that's possible. I think that they have some sort of technology that they did not want us to see the old stuff. But there's leftovers, and we're figuring it out. I think we are. There's too much evidence of land that looks like land but has windows and you're able to go inside of it. Just doesn't make sense if you're believing the mainstream narrative. But it makes a lot of sense if you think about it the way we're thinking about it, and open-minded and just looking with your eyes. Obviously, where do they think that all this land's coming from? Do they think that it's just appeared one day? I think it's very possible that it started out with no land, and over time we were able to create all of this land. And I mean, these are just theories, but maybe like as things got bigger and they just died in the water and it just started forming land, you know, and it's just an idea. I don't know.
All right, I'll pause it there, stop it there. But as you can see, there's a whole lot of evidence just by looking at these different rocks and formations and things like that. We can see that they're not formed by, you know, some kind of natural phenomena that, you know, science likes to claim, that mainstream. We can definitely see, especially with that first video, you know, there was those tiles on the desert floor, like going into a mountain. You know, those bricks underneath all that soil and dirt. There's a whole lot of evidence. I mean, there's a whole lot more than what we just watched now. But like I was showing before, you know, just like this, the king of the wing here, you know, they claim it's some kind of natural formation that occurred, you know, water runoff. No, that does not happen with water runoff. It does not occur naturally. We know what scripture says. It says there was these giant trees. There was giant beings, Nephilim. I think the mainstream science will, I know you guys all know this, but you know, we kind of went over it while reading through the book as well. We see who changed and rewrote the history to better fit their own ideology and then to hide the truth of scriptures, hide the truth of creation itself. Literally hiding the truth of Yahuah is what they all do. And it's all deeply connected just like that. Yeah, the Grand Canyon has the same electrical energy patterns. Yeah, those Lichtenberg figures. You know, I learned about all this quite some time ago, and this is what really all helped to open my eyes to scripture and to see that scripture is absolute truth. And then once you see all these cover-ups, everything that they hide, they say, oh, all these things are formed by like lava or some kind of natural formation or wind and things like that. And like, none of that's true. All you got to do is look around. And like I said, the Dead Sea Scrolls, I cannot say for certain that it's a melted building. I'm just highly speculating that it is. I mean, we see these arches here. We see these caves, arches, all kinds of stuff. These same kind of, you know, pillar-like structures. It's just, there's too many coincidences. And how many coincidences does it take for something to become a fact? So I don't believe in coincidences, first off, but I mean, there's too much to ignore here, is my thoughts and opinion. And yeah, you know, if anybody else has anything that they'd like to add, or any of the experiences or anything they've seen that could confirm all this as well, you know, we love it here. We love going over all this. I believe this is proof of that little season of deception that we're in as well.
I like how he did the comparison to what some of these formations could have looked like with what some of the buildings that were preserved. And it kind of made me think of like when people joke about like name brand versus Temu. If anybody knows Temu, it's like a really cheap site that you can get stuff from, but
Yeah.
the quality of the picture that you see isn't the quality that you get in like in real life. And so I thought it was funny because I was like, we have like the Temu version of all of these melted buildings.
But I like that terminology, the Timur version of all this. Yeah, it really is. It really is.
We got duped with the crappy ones.
It's true. Like they even admit they cannot recreate any of these ancient structures that they were building with hammers and chisels. You know, we have all this superior technology, supposedly, but they can't even recreate any of this. It's fascinating, honestly, to me. It just shows the true history.
I was watching a study earlier this morning, and another guy that does some little season talk, and he was talking about how he had reached out to a some kind of city hall, and he requested to see the blueprints of the building, and he had scheduled a meeting with them, and he was like, "Wow, I guess I'm actually going to be able to like see these blueprints." And then they emailed him a day before the meeting and was like, "Actually, we just got word from higher ups that it's too delicate to get out. It would just crumble." So we can't even see the blueprints. I don't think they have them. I think that's why they came up with that excuse.
Yeah, it's funny how they always have an excuse for everything, no matter what it is. You know, they have an excuse why they can't show this publicly, or like those caves in there's more caves like not just in New Mexico, but like all over. That it takes special climbing equipment or helicopters or whatever to get to. And there's brick and mud and houses and all kinds of stuff. All over. Mostly visible probably here in like the desert areas like Arizona, New Mexico, maybe even some of Texas. But we can see all this all around us. And it's especially in like the wooded areas, like the other guy was showing. All these mountains and rocks, they have all these different wood grains and things in them. They were formed in some kind of way. And I'm not trying to say like all mountains are this way, because we know there's mountains and hills that are natural because they're spoken about in scripture. But a lot of ones that we do see around us, as you can see, I highly speculate that they're either trees, they're buildings, or they're dead Nephilim bodies as well, which is another point we didn't get into today. I've gone over it in the past, but there's a channel, what's it called again? Stellium, I think Stellium 7, but he lives in Spain, and there's a mountain by him that looks just like an elephant. It's got the tusks, it's got the trunk, it's even got an ear canal where the ear should be.
Yeah, I've seen that. There's also like this rock formation in Peru that looks exactly like a humongous snake. I think it's Peru.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen
I can't.
that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it's crazy eerily similar to like the scales of a snake and like how it's, wrapped around and everything. I mean, they even call it like snake rock or something like that, I think.
and it like goes through that mountain that it's on too.
Yes.
Like it's wild, yeah. Yeah, big snakes, big elephants, all these large animals. These were those pre-flood Nephilims. The scriptures talks about how these Nephilims, they committed abominations even with the animals. So then we see these gigantic, Titanic-sized animals, basically, is what it was, pre-flood. That's actually why the flood had to come about. But really fascinating stuff. And it does all link with the timeline, the season that we're in. I truly believe that. What other explanation for all these melted buildings all over the earth than, that fervent heat so hot that it melts the elements when Yahusha came back? That's my thoughts.
It's in
Yeah, there it is,
Thailand.
Miranda.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
in Thailand.
that. I mean, look at that. That's
I mean, terrifying if they were actually that size.
Yeah, there'd be no escaping that. Yeah, I love that, by the way, Sumi. Thank you for sharing that. Very long, very informative. I haven't had a chance to read it all, but yeah, there's the rest of it. Yeah, exactly. Thailand's petrified snake cave. A fascinating cave that resembles a giant petrified snake, offering a unique natural wonder that sparks the imagination and captivates visitors. A natural wonder. They're saying this just naturally formed.
And
No,
you know
there's
what's
no.
interesting? What's interesting about petrification is I think it's different. So like trees get petrified, but they've found books that are petrified. They've found, um, I guess somebody lost a foot, and there was a foot inside of a boot that was turned into rock, which is basically petrified. And this it depends on like how much oxygen there is, how much water there is, and how quickly all of those minerals can seep into it and literally harden it. So this isn't taking, thousands of years. It's not even taking hundreds of years. I think somebody proved that it could just take a couple months, depending on like um,
Yeah,
what elements it's exposed to.
yeah. There's straight up World War II tanks that are petrified, turned to rock. So I mean, World War II wasn't even that long ago. So if they're finding that type of stuff, there's rocks or with hammers in them and things like that, like modern hammers, not the classic stuff, but
Yeah, modern
petrified.
hammers, exactly. Yeah. And then Jeremy, I've shared with you some of those statutes that I'm like, is it possible that those are petrified humans because of the arms that are cut off and you can see like the tendon and the bone, which if somebody's just, you know, sculpting a sculpture, why would they have to put bone and tendon inside before they do the outside, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So
There's
that just
even
kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, no, for real. And there's that it's like a Buddha monk statue or something. There's a skeleton inside of it. Like they took x-rays or whatever and they found a skeleton, a human skeleton in it. And they
Creepy.
put this story out like, yeah, they put a story out like, oh, he's just he what they call it? He meditated himself to mummification or something like that. They had some special term for it just to throw that excuse out there to throw everybody off. But yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, those statues with like the lace veils and things like that. That's like you didn't chisel that out. Like you can't chisel a thin veil out of marble. Come on now. Wild. But yeah, it's all clues, it's all evidence, and it's just the hidden history that they hide from all of us to hide the truth of Yahuwah. They got most of the people fooled. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Brother Kelly, for sharing those. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Kelly is hip with the knowledge on it. Yeah. I just and I came across this just like a couple months ago when I was trying to, or maybe it was like more like a few months ago, but it was when I was like really looking into like the meltology, and then I came across that and I was like, no, please, not this. It's so
It
disturbing.
really is, and it just shows how they have their greasy little fingers in every single aspect. Like truly. I mean, look at that last picture. What yeah, like Kelly said, what chisel can do that? Like that whole lace. It's
Mommy.
like
I mean, unless it was some kind of like laser technology that they had way before they
That'd be the only
presented
way,
it to us.
honestly.
Yeah. I mean, because, right, that precision.
Yeah, and there's too many quote unquote coincidences with all of this, and I don't believe in coincidences. So outside of that, that detail, it's very like, yeah.
I kind of
But
think of
again,
like, you know how we have like 3D printers now? I mean, you could literally input, I guess it's basically AI, any kind of picture, and it'll 3D print it. You can, they've done like dupes of the Heart of the Ocean necklace, and all you need is like a picture and it'll 3D print anything you put into it. And so it does make me wonder if they have it on like a more massive scale that they could do that with marble or any kind of rock or granite or something.
I'm sure there was a video I found. I'll have to go and find it again, but what they did, they showed how like giant magnifying glasses can straight up melt like rock and brick and even marble and things like that. And they were speculating it was a certain channel, but they were speculating they made giant, basically magnifying glasses, and it would, you know, what is it? Amplify the sun, heat it up like so much, and you can focus it on like a rock or something, and it'll melt right through it after so long. It'll turn it into basically like molten, and
Yeah,
you could form it in a mold, whatever.
yeah. Hey, Jeremy, do you mind if I kind of try to answer Sarah's question?
Yeah, go ahead.
She wants to know why Qumran could be melted if that was a place where Yah had his people. So if we think in terms of when he brought destruction onto Jerusalem, Qumran was not that far from it. And so when he said, when you see the armies coming, flee to the hills, I think he meant like that entire general area. And so Qumran could have been included in that. And that's just a speculation and it's not fact. I don't know for sure, but that's just kind of like my general thinking on that. Because she was the mother harlot.
Yeah, and we have to remember on his return, he would have taken them out of there. There
Yeah.
because we see all through scriptures there's some here who aren't going to taste death before the coming of the Son of Man. And then later on we see Paul talking about how there will be those who are transformed in the blink of an eye. So when that destruction came upon the land, they were taken out of there. Now, I heard the question, how can they be melted buildings and then clay pots still be preserved in there? That's a good question because perhaps maybe the building preserved these clay pots and things like that. I'm not sure. Or it's just Yahuwah's divine protection, honestly.
Well, and I mean,
I
in
can't
these
say.
melted buildings, you have pockets of survival. That's why, to us, when we heard that it looked like natural formation, we're like, really? That looks like a natural formation? That doesn't seem right. But we never thought to question it because of, the indoctrination. But we do know that that's not natural. So there is pockets of survival that we can now be like, oh, there it is. Now I see it because we're looking through a different lens now. We're actually listening to what our senses are telling us instead of having it suppressed like they've done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a whole lot to it. Definitely divine protection. We are that generation who believes without seeing any of these signs and wonders and things like that. This is Ephraim awakening really in that little season. It's our chance to turn to Yahuwah and then be able to make the kingdom as the other nations. But again, a lot of this we really can only speculate But again, like I said, how many coincidences does it take before something becomes a fact? So just a lot of stuff to consider, think about, take to prayer. And yeah, the controllers hid a whole lot of this.
I feel like the thing I keep going back to is, when people are like, this is just so impossible to believe. I mean, I can't help but just go back to, so is the moon landing. That's impossible to believe. And yet it's something that's pushed all the time, you know? And so
Yeah.
to me, it's, am I going to believe every word that comes out of the mouth that, through inspired scripture that came from Yah himself, and make every man a liar, like he said? I'd rather be a fool, I guess, to the world in that aspect than believe that we landed on the moon and got perfect service, live direct contact with the president, and yet I go into a valley on my way to get my kids from school and I lose connection with the cell tower.
With no delay, by the way. Nixon was calling the moon.
Right, no delay. And that was like what, in the 60s?
Not a second delay.
Right. So again, like let's start, rubbing our 2 cents together and be like, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. And yes, I see that, Sarah. What if you stop people from doing that? My thing is I believe the true land is actually in the north. That's Mount Sinai. And when he returned, there was that massive earthquake. The islands, fled and ran. That's why everything is kind of broken up now. So is Israel, modern day Israel, is that like the chosen land we're all going to? No, it's actually the land in the north. Is it still of importance today? I believe so, because of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Sure, they could have been placed there, but we have to think about the how fragile not only ours were, but the scrolls inside them as well. And like I said, really, we can only speculate on all this. I don't think any of us can say for sure any of this, and it's because they've hidden it so well. But when you put the puzzle pieces together, it's kind of hard to deny like all of this, Yeah, the Pope wears a cross, tells you everything. Yeah, that's the papacy is literally the beast of Revelation. That's what I found in my studies. The harlot that rides that beast is the Synagogue of Hasatan. They've been working together since the Seleucid Empire.
And and the beast did turn on the harlot.
Exactly. Yes, Jermaine. Speaking of Jermaine, would you be, are you ready for your reading, by the way? Well, we got some time for that. Not that I'm
Uh,
trying to change the subject, but
oh yeah, no, I'm already. I just thought you guys had a really good conversation going, so I'm listening in. And yeah, whenever you're finished, you can keep going if you got stuff to talk about.
I'm down for hearing some reading.
Alrighty.
yeah. And
Um,
and
I,
real quick,
yeah.
I know we're getting a part 2 of the Little Season presentation going. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's been a very busy time for a lot of us. I know Miranda's working hard on putting it all together, and she's got a lot to do, so I just thought I'd bring it up today to kind of go into that, since we've been kind of focused a lot on the Torah portions lately in the book. So I thought it would have been cool to that's all the stuff we used to discuss too.
Yeah, it was a great, Jeremy. I always love that. And yeah, guys, I'm sorry that it's been taking so long. To be honest, the pressure of part 2, um, I'm just trying to figure out how to put it in such an order that really helped me like gather like all of um that really helped me understand like how it could be possible. I just don't know, like it's just really hard to like get my thoughts and put them down and try to tell people how I understood it, because there's so many different avenues to the little season that people talk about, and I don't agree with all of them. I take tidbits out of all of it because, you know, a lot of them don't believe in keeping Torah. They think that the law's been done away with, you know, that we only rest in Jesus now, right? And then, you know, and then you've got the ones that don't believe in the North. And then you've got the ones that believe in full preterism. And so there's so many different avenues to it. And it's so hard to try to deduce it to like what my understanding and how I am trying to put it together, because anytime you were talking about truth here, there's going to be so many different layers to it, because, you know, the deceiver doesn't want you to know the truth. So he's going to try to lead you astray in whatever way he can. So I'm sorry, part 2 is difficult, but I'm slowly chipping away at it.
Oh, it's all good, sister. No apologies necessary.
But part 1 was so vital because I wanted everyone to understand like the scriptural aspect of it first, before I try to put in, you know, like current world understandings, because everything has to be based in scripture. And so it is there. And that's what I tried to do in part 1. So part 2 is basically showing you what my perspective is on how Hasatan set it up, because he had 1,000 years to plan his revenge. And so we're not just talking about one level or two, we're talking about a massive, massive cover up. And so it is very difficult, but not impossible. So keep me in your guys' prayers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and they have worked so hard and have had thousands of years to be able to cover up all of this. So, you know, it's been something in the making, a deception, thousands of years in the making is what it is. And yeah, there's a lot to cover about that whole subject. And yeah, I know everybody's excited for part 2, but it does take time to gather all the information, all the evidence, you know, be able to present it, figure out how to present it without offending everybody, you know, things like that. Because there is a lot of, you know, information about it out there, but like Miranda said, it's from people who don't observe Torah. You know, they're more in the churchianity type view about all of it. You know, if the law's done away with, just believe in Jesus, it's all good. And that's not what we believe here. So yeah, it's hard to present that information when a narrative's been pushed out there. You know, just like everything else, really. It all connects just like that. Yeah, no worries, Brother Kelly. And actually, Jermaine, whenever you're ready there, sister, I think we're all ready to hear some reading.
Okay. So my Psalms 48 and 49. Newer versions is 49:50. Psalm 48. For the end, a psalm by the sons of Korah. Hear things, all you nations. Give ear, all you who are dwelling upon the inhabited earth, both those who are earth-born and the sons of humans. Read, pour together. My mouth will speak wisdom, and the meditation of understanding. I will bend my ear to the proverb. With a harp I will open my problem. Why do I fear in the bad day? The lawless at my heel will surround me, the ones who trust their power. and boast in the great amount of their riches. A brother is not redeemed. Will a person redeem? He will not give to Eliam his ransom, and the price of the ransoming of his life. And he laboured for eternity, but he will live in the end, because he will not see destruction when he sees the wise who have died. Together the senseless and the foolish one will perish, and leave behind to strangers their wealth, and their graves are their houses for eternity, their quarters for generations and generations. They called their lands by their own names. And a person, although being with honour, does not understand. He is like the senseless livestock and is made like them. That's interesting. I'm just going to stop there and just reflect because, I look at livestock a lot now and they just stand there and they just stare into nothing. And I'm like, what are you thinking about? What are you doing? What are you looking at? What are you thinking about? What's going on in your brain? And it's like there's nothing going on in their brain. And so I'll just read that again. And a person, although being with honour, does not understand, he is like the senseless livestock and is made like them. This way of theirs is a trap to them, and after these things with their mouth they bless. Like sheep they were placed in Hades. Death rules them, and the upright ones have dominion over them in the morning. Their help will be worn out from their glory in Hades. But Eliam will redeem my soul from the hand of Hades when he receives me. Fear not when a person becomes wealthy and when the glory of his house increases. For when he dies, he will not take all things, nor will his glory go down with him. For his soul will be blessed in his life. He will give thanks to you when you do good to him. He will enter unto the generation of his fathers. He will not see light until eternity. A person, although being in honour, does not understand. He is like the senseless beasts and is made like them. I'm just going to say, I'm thinking, even the dogs and cats, like they just sit there and they just stare into nothing for hours, or not hours, but they'll just, yeah. Has anyone ever watched a dog or a cat just sit there and just look and just, it's like it's empty in their brains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Anyway,
nothing.
it says it there again, like, yeah, so it said senseless livestock up the top, and at the same time I'm going, yeah, but what about the dogs and cats and stuff? They do the same thing. And so, yeah, and it says senseless beasts. Okay, 49, a psalm by Asaph. I don't know who that is, Asaph. Eliam of Eliams, or Eliam of Elohims, I don't know. Yahuah spoke and summoned the earth from the east and until its setting. From Zion is the goodly appearance of his comeliness. Eliam will come visibly, our Eliam, and he will not keep silent. A fire will burn before him, and around him is a violent storm. He will call the heavens above and the earth to judge his people. Gather to him his Kadesh ones, who established his covenant by sacrifice. And the heavens will declare his righteousness, for Eliam is judge. Hear, O people of mine, and I will speak to you, O Yahusha. I will warn against you. I am Eliam, your Eliam. Not for your sacrifices will I reprove you. Your whole burnt offerings are always before me. I will not accept young bulls from your house, nor male goats from your flocks. For all the beasts of the wood are mine, the livestock in the mountains and cattle, I have known all the birds of the heavens, and the beauty of the field is with me. If I am hungry, never ever would I say to you, for the inhabited world and the fullness of it are mine. I will not eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats will I. Sacrifice to Elohim a sacrifice of praise, and repay to the Most High your vows. Call upon me in the day of tribulation, and I will deliver you, and I will glorify, and you will glorify me. But to the sinner, Elohim said, why do you set out in detail the righteous duties of mine, and take up my covenant in your mouth? You hated instructions, and you threw out my words to the rear. If you behold a thief, you run together with him, and you set your portion with adulterers. Your mouth abounds in badness, and your tongue embraces deceit. Seated you speak against your brother, and set a trap against the son of your mother. These things you did, and I was silent. You wrongly thought that I would be like you. I will reprove you, and be present against your face. Understand indeed these things, you who forget Elohim, lest he seize you, and there be no one who can rescue you. A sacrifice of praise will glorify me, and there is a way by which I will show him the salvation of Elohim. That's the end of Psalms. That's so good.
Love it. Love it.
It's
Thank
just
you,
so much.
Jermaine.
Yeah, well, good. There again, it was talking about Zion and what's coming.
Yeah, exactly. I like the animal stare comparison. Sumi said she stares like that sometimes, but no, it's true. Like the animals, they kind of they have that blank, empty look on their face, like, huh? So yeah, no, that was a awesome comparison there.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, Wisdom of Sirach 21. Excuse me, my dog is sneezing. Child, have you sinned? Add to them no more, and petition concerning your former ones. Bless you. Sorry, my dog is sneezing. And petition concerning your former ones. Flee from sin as from the face of a serpent. For if you approach it, it will bite you. Its teeth are lion's teeth, destroying the souls of humans. All lawlessness is like a two-edged sword. There is no healing for its wound. Panic and insolence will desolate wealth. So, too, the house of the arrogant will be desolated. The prayer of the poor person goes from his mouth to his ears, and his judgment comes with speed. The one who hates reproof walks in the footprints of a sinner, and the one who fears Yahuah will convert in his heart. The one who is strong in tongue is known from afar, but the intelligent knows it when he slips. The one who builds his house with the wealth of another is like the one who gathers his stones in a storm. The gathering of the lawless is like gathered flax, and their end is a flame of fire. The way of sinners is levelled with stones, and at its end it is the pit of Hades. And now I love this next line. The one who keeps the law controls his thought. And the conclusion of the fear of Yahuah is wisdom. Whoever is not crafty will not be disciplined. There is a craftiness that increases bitterness, The knowledge of the wise will increase like a flood, and his counsel is like a foundation of life. The entrails of a stupid person are like a broken vessel, and he will not master any knowledge. If an intelligent person hears a wise word, he will praise it and add to it. The indulgent person heard and it displeased him, and he turned it behind his back. The explanation of a fool is like a burden on a journey, but grace will be found upon the lips of the intelligent. The mouth of a prudent person will be sought in an assembly, and he will remember his words in his heart. Like a destroyed house, so is wisdom to a stupid person. And the knowledge of the ignorant is unexamined words. Sorry, all these words are just not flowing easily from my eyes and my mouth right now. Fetters on the feet, discipline for the thoughtless, and like manacles on his right hand. A fool raises his voice in laughter, but a clever man will scarcely smile softly. Instruction is like a golden ornament to the thoughtful, and like a bracelet on his right arm. A stupid person's foot rushes into a house, but the experienced person will be ashamed by his face. A fool peers into a house from the door, but a disciplined man will stand outside. It is a person's ignorance to listen from the door, but the thoughtful will be weighed down by dishonor. The lips of strangers will be weighed down by these, but words of the thoughtful will be set in a yoke. The heart of the stupid is in their mouth, but the mouth of the wise is their heart. When the ungodly curse the Satan, he curses his own soul. The whisperer defiles his own soul, and he will be hated in the neighborhood. What does that mean by when the ungodly curses the Satan, he curses his own soul? Anyone know what that means?
The ones who are unrighteous, they're already cursed, so they try to curse others. They're cursed. That's my thoughts.
Okay.
Or to say,
Okay.
like, when you put your soul into the things of this world and then you start cursing it.
Yeah.
I'll have to listen to that all over again. I'm not comprehending today very well. I'm sitting in a really awkward position, and I'm not very comfortable, so I'm just not my normal self.
No worries.
So 22 is the last one. Wisdom of Sirach 22. A lazy person was compared to a filthy stone, and everyone will hiss at his dishonor. A lazy person has been compared to the filth of manure. Everyone who picks it up will shake off his hand. The shame of a father is in an undisciplined child, but a daughter is born at a loss. A thoughtful daughter will take possession of her husband, and she who is shamed becomes grief for the one who fathered her. The bold woman shames a father and a husband, and she will be dishonored by both. Music in mourning is like an ill-timed story, Whips and discipline are of wisdom at every time. The one who teaches a fool is one who glues pottery, who awakens a sleeper from a deep sleep. The one who tells a story to a fool is one who tells a story to a sleeper. And at the conclusion he will say, "What is it?" Weep over the dead, for he has abandoned the light, and weep over the stupid person, for he has abandoned intelligence. Weep less bitterly over the dead, since he has found rest. But the evil life of a stupid person is beyond death. There are 7 days of mourning for the dead, but for a fool and the ungodly, all the days of his life. Do not talk much with a fool. Do not go to a person without understanding. Keep away from him, lest you have trouble, and you will never be stained when he shakes himself. Turn away from him, and you will find rest, and you will not be wearied by his madness. What will be weighed down more than lead, and what is the name for it except fool? Sand and salt and a lump of iron are easier to carry than a person without understanding. A beam of wood fastened into a building will not come loose in an earthquake. So the heart established by thoughts of a plan will not be afraid at the time. A heart established on intelligent thought is like a plaster ornament on a polished wall. Fences laid on high ground shall not endure against the wind. So a cowardly heart laid on the thought of a stupid person will never endure in the presence of every fear. The one who pricks the eye causes tears, and the one who pricks the heart reveals feelings. The one who throws a stone at birds scares them away, and the one who reviles a friend will break a friendship. If you draw a sword against a friend, do not despair, for there is a way back. If you open your mouth against a friend, do not worry, for there is reconciliation. But reproach and arrogance and disclosing a secret and a deceitful wound, at these things every friend will flee. Gain trust with your neighbour in poverty, so that in his good times you might be filled together. Remain by him in the time of affliction, so that you might be a co-heir in his inheritance. Before a fire there is steam and smoke from a furnace, so before blood there is abuse. I will not be ashamed to protect a friend, and I will not hide from his face. And if evil things happen to me because of him, everyone who hears it will keep away from him. Who will give me a guard over my mouth and a cleaver seal on my lips, lest I fall because of it, and my tongue destroy me? Wow.
Powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah. Sometimes I just really want to read it even slower, because you really need that time to just consume that last sentence that you just read, and next minute you're moving on to the next bit. So it's hard when you're reading to someone because you know that they're waiting for the next bit, but you just really want to keep thinking about it. And I know the reader too is like, hang on, I just wanted to think about that last sentence, but we're on a time schedule sometimes.
No, like if you have something to say about it, I'd love to hear it. That's actually what's cool about personal studies as well, is
Yeah.
when we're reading with ourselves or with our loved ones as well,
Yeah.
we can take that time and stop. So I don't mind if you do that, Jermaine. If you have thoughts on it, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was just, and I do every now and then. I'm just like, whoa, let's just say something about that. But, yeah, and that's another reason why I don't really try to read very fast. I try to just read at a pace of just a little bit of understanding, if I can.
Yeah. I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I wouldn't worry about reading too slow. It's the message
yeah,
that's important. And taking your time
exactly.
with it is important, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I get lost when people read fast. I'm just like, okay, are you just trying to get through this so that we can finish, or are we actually trying to actually read this and understand? But yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's why I actually really enjoy personal studies too. Like you can take your time and dig deeper into that and just
Mm.
like really get into it. And really that's my favorite part because I love studying out this stuff. I love studying out his word,
Mm.
the true history of all this. Like it once you see how it all connects, it's like that solidifies it, at least for me. You know, I see the connections with the calendar, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the scriptures themselves, with the nature of Yahuah himself, and all the way back to the very word of Yahuah. And it's just, it all connects on all those levels. Just like the deception connects, how they try to do us. You know, it connects those deep levels. It's the same with Yahuah, but better.
Mm. Mm. Well, I was just glancing my eyes back over the last chapter that I read, and it really does make so much sense. We talk about this all the time, about how hard it is just to talk to people who don't have understanding. You know, we don't want to sit and talk about the shallow stuff in life. We want to talk about the deep things, the real things, the things that matter, the heavenly things, the things of eternity, or the things of, you know, how we are to present ourselves these days. But in verse 15 it says, sand and salt and a lump of iron are easier to carry than a person without understanding. It's just like a heavy weight to be conversing sometimes and trying to communicate with people who just don't understand. It's just like this brick wall. It's easier to carry heavy things than to try to communicate with these people sometimes.
You know, Jermaine, it reminds me of that passage in Second Esdras where it talks about how the more we gain knowledge, the more sorrowful we are because we see things that other people don't. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it hurts us because, you know, when we learn something that is truly groundbreaking, what's our instinct? It's to connect with somebody so that they can see it too. And with people that don't want to see that, you know, then you feel that disconnect. And then that's why this road is so lonely.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
You explain things beautifully, Miranda.
Dude, yes, I agree. And yeah, it is a lonely road because of that reason. And, you know, we are few in between, which is actually one of the reasons why I really enjoy this fellowship because we are Echad on so many levels.
Actually, can
And
I just read 13 again? Sorry.
yeah,
Listen to
no,
this.
go right ahead.
Do not talk much with a fool, and do not go to a person without understanding. Keep away from him lest you have trouble, and you will never be stained when he shakes himself. Turn away from him, and you will find rest, and you will not be wearied by his madness.
That one's deep and it's powerful too because, you know, I've been through that experience, you know, the people who are fools and they just want to cause contention and problems, you know, they drain your energy and just dealing with them. it will drain your energy, you know.
Yeah,
And
and
then
it's sad to have to say these things. Like, we love them. We are to love people, and it's saddening that we have to deal with things this way. Like, I'm not giggling because I think it's, I don't know how to explain that. I'm not giggling. I'm just, in my heart, I'm very saddened by having to live in a world like this with people like this, because I dearly, dearly want them to get it.
yeah, so very much so, truly. And yeah, and I was just thinking, because when you do try to explain these things to those types of people, they have that blank dog stare in their eyes, you know. They're
I
just like, huh?
know, right? Yeah. And you start feeling like the fool in front of them, because that's what they're looking at you like.
Yeah.
Well,
That's really
that's where
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
and that's where true love really comes into play, isn't it? Because, we don't love somebody because they love us. We love them because
Mm,
he loves us. And
mm,
so loving somebody else without them loving us back is the truest form of love, because we know that we were once where they were. And so I think I've come to a point now where, I've never liked arguing with anybody, but when I first got into this walk, I couldn't understand how people didn't see it. And so I was very, very
mm,
braced about it. And then, as you slowly get into it and you've put your foot in your mouth so many times also, because, we're also continually learning. And so then you get to the humble part and you realize that, I just always say now, like, okay, I introduced this to you. You're not ready for it. That's totally fine. When you are, I'm here. Just
mm.
reassuring them that you're here,
Yeah.
to me, I feel like is kind of like key now, because, there can be so much noise and so much pressure on certain things, and people just aren't ready to digest it yet. And we're over here like, okay, hurry up, because, ooh, time's getting short, And so
Yeah.
you're just like, but, when you're ready to handle this, don't forget that I'll be here whenever you're ready. That's what he does for us. He's here.
Yeah.
I stand at the door and I knock. And if anybody opens and lets me in.
Yeah.
So, we're to patiently be like, okay, I'm here. Let me know when you're ready for this, because they won't hear you. If you keep
Mm,
trying to tell them and tell them and tell them, they're not going to hear you. And you will be wasting your breath. And so, but it's just reminding them that you are there for when they're ready. And hopefully it won't be too late.
mm.
Yeah. Well said.
It reminds me of actually also quite a few people within the Torah movement who do break the bridges. They like cut people off because they don't believe the same thing. And they never want to speak to them again and things like that. So I think that's the wrong place to be in. We've had some local ladies who just went down so many strange rabbit holes, and they just disconnected themselves from anyone who would think anything different from them. It's extremely lonely, but for them, that's the narrow road. But because we didn't agree with something, it was like, okay, you're out. You're out of our club, and it was like, ugh, yuck. Shouldn't be like that,
Yeah.
There's no grace or mercy to be seen.
Yeah, and that's really the big problem in the Torah community is there is no grace or compassion. It's you better agree with me or else. That type of
Mm,
attitude.
And I think that's why I just truly love this mishpachah that we have here. there are a few of us that have different things, and there's some people that have left, but then they've returned. And it's been with open arms. Like, they're like, oh, I'm so glad to see you again. Yes, you know, we may have differences of opinions, but it's like, oh, I'm just so glad you're back. You know, it's no hard feelings. Not that, yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Exactly. And that's why I love it here too. You know, we do have differences of opinions, and that's fine. It doesn't mean we can't be mishpachah, we can't fellowship together, things like that.
Right. How are you going to
And
treat your brother and your sister because of the differences?
Yeah.
And
I think
y'all
this is
didn't
a
all
real
make us the
testament.
same.
Yeah.
What was that, Jermaine?
Oh, it's just like, I do believe that the life that we're living truly is a testing ground. It's truly a place where our heart does get tested and reshaped and reformed and softened, and yeah, it's our schooling.
that really is. It's refinement through the fire, like gold.
Yeah. And we need the others to rub up against us to be able to test that out, to be able to get better.
Well, because it brings things out in our own character that we probably didn't know. Somebody said something interesting, and they were talking about, you know, people that are in prison. Well, they're not stealing or, you know, hopefully not killing. I know this still happens in prison, but they don't have a chance to do it because they're in prison. And then you set them out into the real world, and all of a sudden it's that character that got them into prison is getting tested again, because then they're right, they have their free will again. And so when we're with people that either rub us the wrong way or they do certain things and we're like, ugh, that's annoying, you know, then it's like it's showing us where we lack patience. It's showing us where we are lacking love or compassion. And like, there are certain situations where I'll have a thought and then I'll be like, wow, that was awful. I'm so glad that they're not able to read my mind, because I didn't mean to think it like that, right? Like, it's like, so you're realizing defects in your own character when you're with people, because they're doing something that's probably annoying you, or you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not gonna 100% get along with absolutely everybody, because in some way or another our characters are going to come out and they're going to clash a little bit, and we're going to see where people are patient and kind and courteous, and if they are able to fight against their own, I don't want to say inner demon, because that's not what I mean, but you know what I mean, like our own defect of character. We're fighting against it constantly. Paul talks about it all the time. You know, he wakes up and he's talking about always, you know, killing self. And so that's what happens when we're with other people, and we forget that. Yet, yeah, just because they think a certain way, it doesn't mean, you know, do they love Yah? Are they striving to do better? Well, their weakness might not be my weakness, and my strength might not be their strength, but they're going to have strengths that I don't have, and I'm going to have weaknesses that they don't have. And so are we going to be able to come together and strengthen each other in the things that we need to?
That's so good. I really love the analogy of the prison. That's really good.
Oh, it wasn't my own. Somebody else had mentioned that, and I was like, that's great. Because
Yeah,
it makes
no,
sense.
that's great. I'm going to use it too.
Yeah, and it's really just like that. And there are ones who, you know, they will pose as believers just to cause drama and dissension and things like that. So we even have to be patient and kind with them, because they could cause us to sin by then us, you know, becoming upset, angry, saying things that we don't mean, or name calling, things like that. It can lead to all that. So, you know, just having that patience like Yahusha had. especially with the woman at the well. He didn't bash her over the head and say, "Oh, you adulterous whore." No, he said, "Go and sin no more."
Mm.
And she spread the truth of Yahuah.
I mean, can you imagine if he would have said that, how different that would have turned out? Again, like,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
immediately coming up there and being like, "You whore." I mean, she would have ran crying. She wouldn't have gone in to the city praising. She would have been crying.
Exactly. He just comes out, "Oh, you adulterous whore," like beating her over the head and said, "How dare you?" Like, she would not have turned and repented. She would have been like, "Oh, watch out for this guy." Yeah, so that's also another example of being known by our fruits as well. And, he's our example to follow, so we should have that patience, even with those who disagree or cause problems for us as well.
Well, and there's that other analogy, right? Like, you will attract more flies with honey than with, what was it, like vinegar or something? I can't remember what the term was. But if you're sweet and gentle, you can attract anybody. They will listen, hopefully, to what you say. And, again, they can have their opinion. If they're listening, then, you've at least planted the seed. But if you're like coming up and you're like all mean and whatever, they're just going to remember how you presented it with anger, attitude. Nobody likes that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all a matter of the heart.
And we're down to 7.
Oh, really?
No, it's all good.
Oh.
We've been going actually 4 hours now, exactly. I just love fellowshipping with each and every one of you, truly. And having these discussions about these type of things, it's like so informative. And just to get everybody's different point of view.
Yeah.
So just really appreciate you, truly. Oh, sorry, lost signal. But I do appreciate each and every one of you, 100%.
Yeah. I love this group.
And people don't always remember what you said, but they'll remember how they felt while talking to you. Yeah, precisely, Kelly. There we go. And sometimes, you're right, Sumi. Sometimes you do have to say adulterous whore, but there's a time and a place. So that time would not be just first meeting somebody or.
Or you could say it in a nice way too, like, "Wow, that was very promiscuous of you."
Yes, correct. I mean, well, if that's
I
between
mean,
you and your
I
girlfriend.
also was watching a video. I also was
Go ahead.
watching a video about, biblical cosmology. And I've noticed that, a lot of flat earthers, they, tend to go to the term like, globetard. And again, like, that's not like the correct way to respond to those people. I understand why they think that. I understand why they want to hold on to it. It's a cognitive dissonance. And so I'm never going to call anybody a globetard. I'll just be like, "Well, there's no way I will go back to that. That's okay." But, to me, I'll just be like, "Oh, well, I mean, almost, like, I almost agree with you. I just kind of cut it in half. It's more like a, it's more of like a snowball to me, because of the firmament and everything." But, um, there, again, like, it's just, if we're gonna want them to come to the understanding that we can't be calling them retards because of something that they've been taught since birth. And so, again, like attracting them with honey and with calmness. And, again, when you're ready, because it's a lot. If you have questions, if you're willing to question it, you know where to find me, because I just won't go through that either. I won't argue with somebody who, wants to believe in that. I understand why, but I'm not going to argue with them. If they're not ready, they're not ready.
Exactly. It's a waste of our own energy to try to like dwell on these people that don't even want to listen in the first place, And yeah, when you don't walk up to somebody to try to inform them of something and start the conversation by saying, "Hey, you globetard, you believe in a baller? What a moron," Like that's that's not going to get their attention at all. It's actually going to do the opposite and scare them away. Although I have seen that, people doing that like on YouTube and stuff, just walking up, "Hey, you globetard." And it's like, well, not the greatest way to get the message out there. That's what I can say.
Yeah, you're stumbling yourself before you've even started walking.
Yeah, like nobody's going to be like, "Oh, hey, I love that name. Let's hear more."
Or you're right, I am a globetard.
Yeah, that's you're right. I believed in this baller far too long. But yeah, it's all about the approach. And hey, Shabbat Shalom, Ashley. Glad you could make it, sister.
Shalom.
I was actually thinking about you and praying for you the other day. It's good to see you here.
Yeah, good to see you.
Sumi was too nice today. Sumi being too nice? No way. But yeah, it's always a matter of the heart. Are we going to choose to follow our own heart? Even that, if that includes feelings and emotions. Or are we going to follow the example Yahuah and Yahusha gave to us? And that's having compassion and love. And that's not saying you have to hang out or be with those ones who are causing dissension and chaos and confusion all the time. But
Because remember,
you
even a
don't have to call them.
railer won't get into the kingdom.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can be
I
railing
like
on truth, but still not get into the kingdom because you did not have love.
exactly. I like the expression that brother used on that Lashon Hara video series. He was saying, Michael, the archangel, had every right and reason to accuse Hasatan at that time. Like, it would have been factual, but he didn't. He gave it to Yahuah. So, I mean, it's a good example for us to follow as well. Yeah, you can have faith, but not love. If you don't have love, you are nothing. It's 1 Corinthians, actually, all about love. So, yeah, it's unfortunately prevalent in the Torah body that there is no love, there's no compassion or kindness. It's usually just, follow and listen to what I say or, get the boot. And we should not be like that at all. I've been there myself, but it's a learning process, just like everything is. We just learn to do better and handle things better moving forward. None of us
Hey,
are
Jeremy.
perfect. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Sorry. It just keeps jumping up at me, and I just really wanted to repeat 20 to 27. Who will give me a guard over my mouth and a cleaver seal on my lips, lest I fall because of it, and my tongue destroy me? I think it's just really important. We've got to guard our mouth.
It's the tongue that speaks life or death. So
Yeah,
very.
and it will help our heart to be moved and changed.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you believe Ezekiel 40 to 48 is about? Well, luckily I know all about that. I believe it's not only a future, as in the millennial temple style reign, but it's also the future from then on, like the sons of Zadok. So they're not only going to serve as, Yahuwah's chosen priesthood from then on, but they also get the privilege of serving in the millennial temple as well, still doing those priestly duties. And Ezekiel 44 is really my favorite because that literally goes through, and it's not about the future temple, it's about right then and there, continuing even now. It's the sons of Zadok who were ordained by Yahuwah himself to keep the Torah, the calendar, the Shabbats, the festivals, and to settle disputes about all of it as well. And I mentioned it before, actually, when reading through that in my book, but a lot of people will glance over that when they read through scriptures. Like Zadok's mentioned so many times, but it's easily glanced over because not a lot of people, teach about it or mention it or connect the dots. And so things like that, like sure, a lot of people know about the Ezekiel 40 to 48. A lot of people don't know about it. But when they read through it, they think of it as just a millennial reign type privilege that they have. But I believe it's both.
But if you believe that the millennial reign has already passed, like that's where my mind goes. Like it is already has passed, and we're just waiting for like the judgment, the second harvest. Then what do you do with that?
Well, we're still here on Earth. We still have their writings. They kept the calendar and all that, as we can see. So, yes, we are under the Malki Zadok priesthood. So we're technically still under the sons of Zadok because Yahusha was the son of Zadok. But all the same laws, statutes, commands, the same calendar, it still applies until the day of judgment.
So it's not like one figure, it's the kingdom of priests.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's actually what Israel was intended to originally be when they came out of Egypt. It was supposed to be a nation of all kings and priests together. But they kind of messed that one up. So that's where Yahusha comes in, and he is our king and high priest of the Melchizedek, which is Malki and Zadok. So Melech or Malki is king, Zadok is righteousness. So yeah, we still follow the same laws, statutes, the commands. We see the calendar still lines up exactly the same way. Even though we are not under the Levitical priesthood now, we're under the Melchizedek. And all of that's being done and offered. Like all the priestly duties that we read in like Leviticus and Deuteronomy and all that. So those are still being done today, but in the heavenly millennial tabernacle. So that's why we don't have to do it here. It's not a requirement. Not to mention Yahusha fulfilled the sin offering, the sin atonement. He was the Asham offering, the atonement for sin. So it can go pretty deep, but it's still the same laws, statutes, and commands. I hope that makes sense.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I know we've been going for quite some time today, and I love it. But if anybody else has any questions or comments or anything, feel free to let them be known. And I think we might end it there for the evening if there is no questions or anything.
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you say to somebody that says, how do you say that Yahuah is Yahusha? Um, and yet, like, how does, if Yahusha is a priest, right, is standing in the gap to himself? Like, I don't know how to explain it other than that, but you get what my question is? Like, how can you be a priest to yourself or something like that? Like, stand in the gap for yourself, to yourself, like.
Yeah, so again, this kind of goes into, so the word of Yahuwah. So when we speak, we can't see words, but we hear them. So when Yahuwah spoke light into being. So that light is a visual representation of what is unseen, which is Yahuwah. That light is Yahusha. So it's the same as that. So Yahusha is the visual representation of Yahuwah, and not only for us, but the angels as well. And Enoch actually describes that, how the angels can't even look upon Yahuwah himself, but they have to look at the Messiah, the visual representation. And he's called the Son because everybody in the flesh is a son. So if you're in the flesh, you're a son. That's why he's called the Son. I like to look at it as, so you have a little jar or a cup, like a glass of water that you're going to get. You scoop this glass of water out of the whole ocean. So is the water in that cup any different from the rest of the ocean water that you gathered it out of? Not at all. It's just in a smaller vessel, and it's a tiny piece of it. So it's not like Yahuwah himself, his whole spirit and everything went into the flesh. No, he took a tiny piece of that and put it into that cup, and that cup would be human flesh. And then the reason he could be a priest is because he is that visual representation. He's the mediator between us and Yahuwah, between the angels and Yahuwah as well.
So would you say that you are type of Yahusha? Like you and me, or like when we see um like even Joshua or Moses, Masha, or any of these guys, Joseph, they were a type of Yahusha because they had the word and they were flesh, they were men, but the word dwelt in them.
Yeah, so it's like a type and shadow of that.
Right.
So our behavior should be a representation of Yahusha, Yahuwah, and all that. So if we're out here, for example, like committing murder and heinous acts of crime and things like that, that's not going to be representing anything good. So our behavior does reflect on that. Are we Yahuwah or Yahusha? No, because we are separate. We were made to be separate. They are one. And it's not any kind of trinity because the Ruach is something separate. It's actually one of 7 Ruach of Yahuwah. That's a whole nother story. Actually, I have a whole write-up about that I did. And I'm going to be putting it together in my book number 2 that I'm doing. And it's going to be all about Yahusha. and how he came from the line of Aaron and David, how he's our Asham offering, and how the death, burial, and resurrection lines up on the Zadok calendar. And also I was going to include the divinity, like through my studies, and as we can see through apocryphal books and things like that, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, they say that Melchizedek is literally Yahuah in the flesh. So Melchizedek, it was passed down, it was supposed to go to Adam, but because of the fall and sin and all that, Yahuah took it back. And this is why we see in Genesis talking about Melchizedek that he has no lineage, there's no beginning or end and things like that. It's because it literally was Yahuah in the flesh, his visual representation.
See, when you explain it like that, like I totally like when Isaiah says, "Believe, know, and understand." I believe, know, and understand this, and it's very, very clear to me. But and I know like it's not by the Ruach that anybody can say that Yahuwah is Yahusha, except by the Ruach, obviously. But like when I'm explaining it to others, and they come back with saying, "Well, I see an obvious son father thing," and even when like I read like Daniel 7, it literally says there, it interprets who the dominion is given to. The dominion is given to, it says the saints, that who is like who is the son. And so to me, it's very obvious that like he came as a son to take the place of the son, to show us how to be like perfect sons. And he says, be perfect as I am perfect. So it just makes so much sense that it's Yahuwah who can only save. Only he is perfect. Nobody else is perfect. But what gets me all like choked up is when people say like Yahuwah can't die. Like, well, he didn't. He's alive. Like, I mean, it just seems like.
And,
Go ahead.
and that's why I gave that example. Yahuwah didn't die. He did not die. The flesh died. The Ruach in him did not die. And like I said before, it's a small part of his Ruach that he put in a fleshly body. So Yahuwah, of course, is still in his place in heaven. It's like scooping that glass of ocean water out of the ocean. That same water is still in that glass, just a smaller vessel. So,
So, but if somebody calls Yahusha Big Brother, I'm like, that's a no go for me, because how, like, then then that's showing me two persons still. That's showing me twinity. Am I correct in that?
I
Or
mean, I
would you
guess, yeah,
still
because,
call it a big brother?
yeah, he's not like a brother. He's actually the king and the high priest. So that's this is why he's respected. This is why he's given obeisance to that, and that he is Yahuwah. But he, I wouldn't say a brother, but he's our teacher, the one we should follow. He's our example that he gave. This is why he's saying those prayers, to give an example. Because even reading through like the New Testament, you see the apostles, they don't understand the simple, parables that he's speaking about. Things we would understand today, they didn't even understand. And so he had to explain it in these certain ways. Well, I'm trying to remember my point of that. But like the people back then, they were a simple people, like simple minded. So the parables that we see written in the New Testament and things like that, like of course we get them. But back then it was very hard for the average person to understand, if that makes sense. And so that's how Yahusha is the visual representation of Yahuwah. What was I going to say about that? I'm sorry, my apologies. I
You
totally
did
lost my train
yeah,
of
you
thought.
did perfect. I'm just rambling. Like to me, like what I've been struggling with. It's not so much I'm struggling with my faith. It's just like being able to like use scripture. And it's really like not, I mean, that scripture that talks about no more will any man have to tell his neighbor who I am. or like know Yah, because everyone will know. It's like, well, when is that going to be? Because it's like I want to share with the whole world, but then it's exhausting because it's like it's only by the Ruach anyway. So it's like, well, what's the point of even like if this is hospitality season, like, am I supposed to still be fishing for men? Like, not men, like fishing for men, like I'm looking for a man, but you know what I mean. I hope.
No. Yeah, no, we are supposed to still be doing that, and it's we have the same goals. We still do the same things. We're supposed to go around and wake others up, and it's just that's the example Yahusha set for us because that's what he was doing, and then everyone after, they also did the same. So while we might not have, these signs and wonders like the cloud and the pillar of fire, we don't have prophets that are directly talking to Yahuah. We only have a bunch of self-proclaimed prophets and things like that. Like, there are those of us who are still finding that narrow path through all that garbage. And we are that generation that he's called, the ones who don't see or hear any of that, but believe. And it goes with, the first is the last and the last is first. We may be that last generation, but we will have like a first place spot in the kingdom as well. So we still have the same goals. We still go around trying to help everybody out to find the truth for themselves. But there are those out there who will they're not chosen.
Do
That
you think
Yahuwah
that's a
knows.
make or break? Like, do you think that's a make or break? Like, that's a doctrinal thing. This is like a foundational doctrinal thing. Like, it's got to be like you have to believe that, or because I read the scripture where it's like if you blaspheme the spirit, which is I believe Yahuwah because Yahuwah is a spirit. So it's like what is it a doctrinal difference that should be a non-negotiable? Like, do you think that people that don't believe Yahuwah is Yahusha, do you believe like they're not going to be with Yah?
I will
Big
say I am
big
not someone
questions.
that believes I'm not someone who believes Yahusha is Yahuwah. I'm still looking into it, but I'm still not under that belief. And I don't believe that because I don't understand something that maybe you guys do, that that's gonna put me in a place where I'm not gonna be saved.
Yeah, and I do not agree with that. Just because we have a different point of view, one person's not going to be saved and the other's not.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
the
Okay.
same with churchianity. We see there's people out there on the streets like preaching the word to people. Sure, it's a Christian point of view and things like that, but they're still reading from his word and getting it out there. So that's their purpose, to wake up those people. We all started somewhere. So if
This is
people
so
even
refreshing to hear.
on that, yeah, I
Because
know
like the
they're
way that I see it is like we're all on like a journey, right? It's like I started off like on a broad road, Christianity. Actually, I started Worldwide Church of God, so even broader, which is, and then Christianity, and the way that I saw it was, or I see it now is like that Hosea 2 where it says like you used to call me my Bali, or Baal, however you say it, but now you call me my husband. It's like the more that you seek, the more you will find. You'll know my voice. The more you read about me, you're gonna read my words. You're gonna hear it. You're gonna know me. And there's an intimacy there. And it's like as you continue to walk, that's what we're told, like persevere, continue to run the race. And it's like the more that I read, it's almost like it's like the more I learn, the more I don't know. And I just guess like I get caught up in my like, okay, well, what do I even believe? Sometimes it gets kind of confusing. I'm making it complicated. Sorry.
It just means you're chewing on the more meatier part of the word, and when you find something that's, harder to chew, it takes longer to digest. So
Oh,
that's how the word works though. That's why, we're called to be off the milk, because We have to get to meatier stuff. The milk is very important, right? It quenches our thirst. But the meatier stuff is what settles in us and helps us to grow, right? It gives us the nutrients that we need.
Satiation. Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's how I look at it. And,
Yes.
there is a lot of meatier stuff out there, but we can't shy away from it because it's still a part of his word and we're going to have to digest it at some point. And if we don't, then when things happen that are starting to unfold that the word talked about, but we didn't digest it, we're not going to be equipped to handle it when it happens.
Exactly. And I was given that example I was given of the church dude out on the street preaching to say, can I judge him and say he's condemned to hell because, he doesn't understand Torah yet? No, that's not for me to judge. So just because somebody has a difference of opinion doesn't mean I can personally condemn them in my thoughts or even out loud. Like, we should not be able to do that. There's only one who can judge. So
Um,
it's all up to him, really.
Hey,
Beautiful.
Jeremy, it's Lisa, and
Hey,
Ashley.
Shalom.
Hi,
Shalom. Hi,
Shalom.
Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to share something. I know it was kind of in and out during the fellowship, but I know we were talking about love and different things. And I think it was last week, Jeremy, I had sent you a message on Messenger about Israel, and you sent me that video. What was it called? I have to look now. About who Israel was and how it started with Abraham, and he was actually a Gentile, Chaldean from Ur, I believe it said. And I was trying to listen to it. It was quite lengthy. It was like 3 hours. And I do have to go back and re-listen to it again. But what really struck me as incredible that I never really thought about it this way. And I still have a lot of studying to do about, how the tribes split, and then there was the northern 10 tribes, and then the southern two, the northern being Israel, and then the bottom two being of Judah, if I'm correct in saying that. And I don't know, I'm still learning, but what was like incredible is I actually finished listening to it last night, and it started going into about how they are divorced from Yahuah. And I'm trying to get my thoughts together, that they're divorced because they went whoring after other gods and idols and stuff like that. And then it went into about divorce and how a woman is free to marry again if her first husband dies. And it just struck me, it never struck me like this before, that, not only Messiah dying for the sin, and yes, whoring after other nations and gods is sin, but he he died so that they could come back and be remarried to Yahuwah again.
Beautiful.
It was incredible. I'm listening to 2.5 hours and I'm like, okay. And then the ending, I was just floored because I'd never really thought about it that way. Yes, he died for our sins, but when you're really digesting the Old Testament, and when the tribes were all split and, they went after other gods, and that he still loved them so much that they were married, but then they were divorced, but so that they could come back, he died. It was just incredible. That's how much he loves us and them, when you're trying to decipher who Israel is, and how we're grafted in and everything. It was just incredible. So I want to say thank you for sharing that. It was really, really good.
Yeah, no problem, sister. And all praise to the Most High.
Hmm.
And honestly, that's what kind of, because I used to think Yahuwah and Yahusha were separate as well. But we see all throughout scriptures that Yahuwah says,
Thanks.
"You are my bride." So we also see that, by Torah law, a son cannot marry a father's, bride, whether it's an X1 or anything. Like, it's not cool. So that's also what helped me to put it together to be like, wow, then it has to be Yahuah because he wouldn't
Exactly.
break it. He wouldn't break his own Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It really is.
Yeah,
But again,
I remember listening to the when I first came into Torah. I mean, it was really authentic. It was I never knew about you, Jeremy. I never knew about like all these, vine. I still don't know about all the different tribe to the Torah to the tribes, all the different guys, Watchmen of Yahuwah, all that stuff. And it was really authentic and organic and beautiful. Yah showed me that his word still stands. It does not return void. It is still established. It's still valid. It's still there. We should be abiding. And I remember kind of like slowly getting into things, going to different what is that called, like synagogues, messianic synagogues. I'm like, this is not the way. This is different. This is weird. And then I was listening to Almond House Fellowship. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but that's where Lisa, I first heard, like, I still have mad love for them. I
Mm.
know that they have a lot of love for the Father, but um they went into, like, I would encourage you, Lisa, to listen to that one too, because that was really cool. They did one on the bride and the groom, and said the same thing. And I remember like just weeping, like
Mm.
it like hit me like a ton of bricks, like, whoa, that's why he died, like
Right.
that's like, that
Right.
makes sense. So that's even above and beyond all of that we can think or ask or know. Like, it's just even more beautiful, all the details. And yeah.
Yeah. It was a blessing. It was incredible.
yeah, I like the Almond House Fellowship. I don't, of course, agree with all their points of views.
Right.
You know, they do support a lot of Judaism and things like that,
Yeah.
which I don't agree with, but they
Yeah, I
do
don't
have some
listen to
good
them
views.
anymore, obviously, but I have lots of love for them, because that's how, like, like Yah uses, even he can use rocks, he used donkeys, he used, even, I mean, he uses Hasatan. We all have he uses every vessel. It does not go to waste for his esteem. So yeah.
Precisely. And that's just how we all need each other because we all have our different duties for Yahuwah. You know, just because, they have a different point of view doesn't mean that, they're condemned to the hellfire and, the pit of fire. None of that. It's all up to Yahuwah. We're all here to do his work. And, it's okay to agree to disagree about things. And I know even in this fellowship here, we don't all agree about 100% on everything. I don't think two people on the whole earth will agree about 100% of everything. But we can all agree about 95% of everything. So we should take that 95% and be like, yeah, this is what matters. That little 5% left over there, it's all good. We don't have to fight and argue or divide over that. That's my thoughts. That's
Mine
how
as
I feel.
well.
Awesome. Yes.
Mine as well. So glad we're on the same page there.
Again, maybe you guys are just seeing a different perspective of a tree that I'm just not seeing yet. But yeah, I mean, I still love you guys, and I don't think it's anything to get blue in the face or argue about. I just have a different stance.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's one thing that I do know is that Yahuwah is the Yahuwah of all ages. He is the King of Kings, and I can't wait to be reunited with him one day.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what counts. That's what matters. Because look what we have to work with. All the lies, the deception, all of these different theologies and ideologies, like from the churches and Judaism and just from all over. We went over that a little bit earlier today too, talking about how some of these viewpoints that some of these churches and people hold came straight from the rabbis of the first century. They don't even realize that that's where it came from. So we have to sit through all these lies, and honestly, it's truly a miracle that any of us are able to, or were able to wake up, and that there are still people continuing to wake up through all of this. I mean, the clown show world that's going on right now doesn't help them. It actually helps to wake people up. But truly, all the lies, all the deception, all of that, very hard stuff to sit through. It took me years to sift through so many different things, and I don't know everything. Sure, I know a lot about, like, the calendar, for example. I know a lot about what Scripture says, but do I know everything about it? No. I don't think I ever will. I don't think any of us ever will. And it's just why we all need each other. Because we do have our specialty topics, I guess. So like the calendar, for example, the Dead Sea Scrolls, I love all of that, the true history. Whereas Marissa, she was studying into all the luminaries and all of that. That's her specialty in all of it. Miranda has the little season and all that. That's like her specialty topic. Natalie has the Hebrew language and all that, and so forth and so on. And Jermaine has a gift of reading. And, we all have those gifts, and we all need each other.
Jeremy, not just reading. She's an expert in gardening and handling spiders.
That that is true. That as well. Yes. She knows a lot about the gardening, especially according to the moon cycles. So, yeah,
Which is
there's
so
some.
neat.
It is.
You guys are all proficient at my favorite subjects, so I guess I need to step up my game because I'm just kind of like a follower, I guess. Is that a strength?
Well, don't follow us, follow Yahuah, and he will guide you
Yes,
100%.
yes. Hold on.
Like, we shouldn't be followers of men. We should just follow his truth and his word. Sure, we can listen to each other, help each other out, be there for each other. But don't just take, like, my word for it, for example. Like, go and test it for yourself and see. That's what I always encourage, truly. I learned the hard way, just listening and blindly following what other men say. It can turn out very bad in the end. And there's too many people in the Torah body that do that, and they will defend those who have been caught lying or deceiving and things like that, all because they're their favorite person in the world, and they just blindly follow everything they say and believe it. One, Scripture says, test everything to his word, even test every spirit that comes. So that says a whole lot right there to me.
Exactly.
But
That's why it's thus says Yahuah is my favorite, because when I meant I was following, I didn't mean y'all, but yeah, that too. But I meant like, yeah, of course, above all things, Abba.
yeah, and like I said, we all have different aspects and different gifts that Yahuwah has given us. We all need each other. Some are good at cooking, camping, hunting, whatever it may be. All the more reason we all need to come together.
That's why we're called the body, right, of Yahusha, because
Yeah.
I refer to myself as the little toe. And I don't know if anybody has ever broken their little toe before, but you don't know how important that little toe is for your balance and how much you actually use it until you've broken it. And oh my gosh, and let me tell you, extreme, excruciating pain that shoots up your leg, and you could feel it even in your hip. And so every body part, no matter how big or small, especially the small ones, they still have an important job. and you don't realize how much you use it until it's broken or not working well. And then you feel it everywhere and are constantly reminded of it.
Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, the little toe for the little season. No,
Yes, did you like that?
I love it. Yeah, and perfect example, beautifully said, because it's so true. And not only for our toes, but even the little hairs on the little toes, Jermaine. You know, every part of our body. You know, we if we're missing a toe, it's going to be tough. If we're missing our foot, it's going to be tough, and so forth and so on. We all need each other for that reason.
Oh my goodness, Jermaine, the little hair on the little toe. Well, it's funny because people were talking about, again, like going back to our senses and really listening to like what, so our body knows danger and detects danger before our brain can process it. And like, I guess what you could call it is like the spidey sense. So like the hairs, right? When you're either scared or or when something really like I get goosebumps when some people sing because their voices are so beautiful. But when I'm scared, I get goosebumps too. And so the hairs on your body will stand up. Well, that's part of the senses. And again, your senses are catching on to something that your brain hasn't quite comprehended yet. And so um so maybe you're that hair that stands up to alert what's going on.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh,
Are you saying I actually still have meaning? Yay!
Of course you do. I'm just letting you know that, like, again, like, y'all gave us all of our senses. And so, like, I just thought about, like, the hairs that stand up on me, especially, like, also, like, when I hear, like, a screeching sound. And, like, I don't know, like, for me, it's like when metal, like, rubs up against, like, glass plates, it makes, like, that chalk, that scratching, and it raises the hair on my skin because I don't like that, I guess, frequency.
like
That's
nails on
so
a
cool.
chalkboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, even that little hair that has to stand up is very important. So we all need each
But I
other.
would not say you're the hair on the toe.
Yeah, I would disagree with that statement as
Yeah, I
well.
would not. I would not say that.
And maybe the fingernail, maybe the toenail, sorry. If the toenail comes off the toe, that's a real painful thing too, right?
Oh, yes. Again, like think about everything that's put on the body and why it's put there, right? Like I think
There's a
it's some
purpose.
I think it's yeah, like I think it's funny when some people think that you can live without your gallbladder or that you can live without your pancreas. If your body isn't using it and it's dormant, then there's something else wrong because those are filters that y'all put in the body for a reason. So if they're not working, you got to imagine that they're clogged. But the pharmaceutical company and hospitals and doctors would say, oh, yeah, you could just get rid of it. No, you can't. You need it. You just need to unclog it because it has a purpose. And so people have to be on medication for the rest of their life because that organ was taken out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, an ingrown hair is actually quite a painful experience too, apparently. So if the hair goes wrong, there's pain.
But again, there would be a reason behind it because of a clogged pore. So, so again, like, we were given bodily hair for a reason. And so if our pores are clogged, then that hair won't be able to grow straight like it's supposed to.
Yep.
Very true. There's a reason for everything. But yeah, I love it. We are all important. We all need each other. And that's why I truly love and appreciate each and every one of you. We may be the little toe or the little hair, but we all serve a purpose and a function, and it's for Yahuwah's kingdom. And as long as we're following Yahuwah, that's really what matters most. Man, we've been going almost 5 hours now. I love it. Good fellowship
Yeah,
today.
I think I'm gonna hop off because I'm finishing up dinner. But Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and I very much enjoyed this fellowship today. It was much needed.
Absolutely. Shabbat shalom, sister. I'm probably going to be doing the same here.
Shabbat
Yeah.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
shalom. We'll see you all on Saturday for our midweek midrash. And Shabbat shalom, and have a Baruch and blessed rest of your weeks, everybody.